Test one. Good evening. I am calling to order the November 12th, 2024 Fountain City Council meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Thompson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick,
Here.
Councilmember Hinton,
Here.
Councilmember Applegate,
Here.
Councilmember Estes,
Here.
Councilmember Hersberg,
Here.
Councilmember Duncan. Councilmember Duncan notified staff of her absence for this evening. I have 6 members present.
All right, thank you very much. Before we go on to the presentation tonight, I would like to take a moment of silence in remembrance of Golden Police Officer Evan Dunn, who was killed last week in the line of duty responding to a traffic accident. So please join us in a moment of silence for him and his family. Thank you. All right, that takes us on to item 4.1, presentation proclamation declaring the week of November 18th to 22nd, 2024 as Colorado Crash Responder Safety Week. Very appropriate after the moment of silence we just had. Councilmember Hinton, would you please read that into the record?
I will, Madam Mayor. A proclamation declaring that the week of November 18th to the 22nd, 2024 as Colorado Crash Responder Safety Week. Whereas law enforcement officers, firefighters, public service utility, emergency medical personnel, road crews, tow operators conduct valuable and often life-saving operations at roadside. Whereas these on-scene personnel provide a critical public service, and whereas they are called to duty at all hours of the day and night in adverse weather conditions and dangerous roadside environments, and whereas Colorado responders use traffic incidents management, TIM, training and skills to safely quickly clear scenes to improve the safety of all road users, and whereas as of September 23rd, 2024, during this year, 28 first responders that were working on the roadways have been struck and killed, including 13 law enforcement officers, 3 fire EMS professionals, 7 tow operators, 1 road safety professional, and 4 Department of Transportation workers, 2 of which were Colorado DOT employees. And whereas 1 death is too many, and whereas drunk, drug, drowsy, distracted, or dangerous drivers are a threat to our responders' safety, and whereas the state of Colorado asks all road users to do their part to keep everyone responding to traffic incidents on our highways safe by slowing down, moving over, and driving safe. And whereas the state of Colorado has a move-over law requiring drivers to slow down, and moreover, when approaching an emergency vehicle, a tow truck, or a highway maintenance vehicle, when their emergency lights are activated, and whereas there is a need for Coloradans to be educated on dangers of failing to abide to these laws, and whereas the week of November 18th to the 22nd is recognized as National as Crash Responder Safety Week. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed that the mayor and city council of the city of Fountain, Colorado, do hereby proclaim November 18th to the 22nd, 2024 as Colorado Crash Responder Safety Week. Done this day, the 12th day of November 2024. Signed, Sharon Thompson, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for reading that in. Do we have any first responders here in the audience? I know we have our, would you please stand if you are a person that responds with your department to anything in the roadside? Okay, I know we reached out to some tow truck drivers too, and I'm not sure if anybody came tonight or not. So thank you very much for your services. Thank you for reading that into the record, Councilmember Hinton. All righty, that takes us on to item 4.2, Board, Commission, and Committee appointees. There are none tonight. Item 5, correspondence, comments, and ex officio reports. Mr. Trainer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had one item I wanted to bring to the council's attention. On November 22nd, we'll be hosting the tree lighting. It's heading us into the Christmas season, so that Tree will be right out front here on the evening of the 22nd. Should be a fun event.
And we're having a coloring contest for the kids on who gets
That's
to
right.
push the button to light the tree, right?
That's right, exactly.
And where can they find the coloring sheets? Are they online somewhere they can print off?
Online. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Joni.
And then they bring them by the office?
Yes.
Okay, all righty, thank you. Mr. Evans?
Mayor, with Bob being here, it's good timing. I'd like to just let everyone know we have received, and Rosa has been gathering a lot of positive feedback and thank yous from our residents to the street department on their staggered shifts that you guys ran last week, Bob. And Bob gets out himself in a plow, and they kept up with a historic storm, and we've gotten some really great feedback. So Bob, please pass that along to your guys. Rosa's going to gather some of that so we can get that in writing for them. We don't often hear that in storms, so it's good to see you put all that equipment to good work, so we appreciate you. The other thing is we've got our most recent update on our rail crossings closures, and that was this afternoon, and there was an impact with the weather, and now they do not expect to be into the city till the first week in December. So that was quite a change from the initial dates we got. So we'll continue to keep everyone informed, and those dates could continue to change, and I would imagine they will change, but it could be December 2nd or after that at this point from the update we got this afternoon.
Be really nice if they could postpone it till like the school break.
If we get any more snow, it may be after Christmas, we don't know. Yeah.
Not the first day the kids go back to school from school break, though, right? All right, yes, utilities.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to announce that on Monday, December 2nd, at 6 p.m. in this room, we are going to have a council work session on the water cost of service and rate study. We will have the individual who prepared that study for us here to make a presentation, have a discussion with the council, and that will be a meeting that is open to the public. Once again, the Monday after Thanksgiving, Monday, December 2nd at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Anybody else down that way? Any of the chiefs or?
Madam Mayor and Council, good evening. Good to see everybody. Just a quick statement on our ambulance wreck that I know everybody was aware of from this past weekend. Just wanted to bring everybody up to date that our firefighters are good, they're okay. The firefighter that went to the hospital was released within just an hour or so with very minor injuries. And the patients that were in the back, I don't want to speak to their current condition, but the last time I checked on them, things were okay with them, still seeking some follow-up treatment. But I have been in contact with the family and due for another touch point with them and probably tomorrow. So. But as far as our crew, all is well with them. Another quick note along the same lines is getting in the Christmas spirit. Save the date for December 13th, Friday evening. A invitation will be coming to the mayor and council for the fire department's Christmas party and award ceremony, our annual award ceremony. That'll be a combined event, and so we wanted to extend the invitation to mayor and council, and that'll be coming out formally in the next week or so, but just wanted to give you guys a save the date. I'm not even sure what time it starts before you ask. So, and that is all. Thank you.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. Mayor, I just wanted to thank you for recognizing Officer Dunn. He, in fact, was an officer that was still in training with his FTO, hadn't even been on his own yet, a young man with a family. And it's very sad. He was, I believe, killed by a suspected drunk driver. They were working something on the side of the road. So very appropriate that you read the proclamation tonight. And I want to thank you again for that.
Yes. Anybody in the back row? You're all just going to wait for your other time, okay? City Clerk's office?
I just wanted to add that Willie Tuz will be back prior to the tree lighting, doing an ice carving out front City Hall all day on Friday, the 22nd. That's all
Oh,
for me.
cool. All right. IT?
Nothing tonight, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off tonight. I just, I don't know, do all deserve a badge? We survived election 2024, huh? All righty, congratulations to everybody that put their name out there and ran for office, and really, really appreciate it. And it's always a tough thing to do, to put your name out there, and then you sit back and wait on the night of the election and see what happens. And I think all of us up here have been there, right? And so thank you for everybody for running. And of course, congratulations to Councilmember Applegate on your winning for the county commissioner seat. So you worked hard. So, but everybody that ran, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. And look forward to changes that are going on in a lot of different places. So, and I went to a D8, had a career pathways program that they're doing together with the I feel like my mic just went off, but my light is still on. Oh, don't even make a joke out of what I just said. Please don't make a joke out of it, okay? All right. I just walked right into that one, didn't I? All righty. Anyways, so it's a really exciting program that they've been doing for a year or so with the Workforce Center, so that some of these younger kids that have a different career path, they're trying to connect a lot of businesses and business people in the community with the kids. So it's really exciting. So if you want to know more details about it, go to the county's Pike Peak Workforce site and look around for the Career Pathways Program. Councilmember Rick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I want to echo Todd's comments to the street department. Outstanding job of keeping things clear to get around during the snowstorm. And then as soon as the storm was over, your guys immediately hit the back streets and got those cleared in what I consider record time. So thank you for that. Want to recognize American Legion Post 38 and VFW Post 6461. Veterans Day ceremony or celebration last Saturday. Wasn't able to attend myself due to illness, but all the feedback I got was that it went well. On Monday, we did have a flag ceremony for Veterans Day. Want to thank the Color Guard for that. Jerry Rebel, Eric Markowski, James Alley, and Jeremiah Dale. Thanks to all of them for an outstanding job on that color ceremony. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
I got to go to the Veterans Day Parade in Colorado Springs, so I'm glad they brought it back. I mean, even with the Albuquerque low and the crazy snow we got that day, I mean, the roads crew in this town in Springs, they did a great job. They really all did and got everything all cleared out. So, and it was good. It was a good showing. It's good to see lots of people and good to see decent participation this year. So.
Thanks for going. Yeah, I was going to go to that, but I was afraid I wasn't going to get back in time for the other program, so I decided to hit that one. You made both, though. Councilmember Estes?
Just a quick thank you to all of our veterans. We had Veterans Day, and a big shout out for everybody that served. I appreciate everybody's service, and I'll have to say go Navy, and thank you for a good election season. I am ready for no commercials.
You know, the Christmas commercials. Yes.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. Councilmember Hinton?
I would just like to say, go Army, and I would like to.
And I have to sit between them.
Yes. And I also would like to, send my thanks to Bob and your crew. It was a hellacious storm. I stayed in most of the time because I was a little bit under the weather, but I was telling my wife, I'm like, this snow is not stopping. It's like, keep going. And once I finally made it on the roads, you guys did a great job, so I really appreciate that. And I know that the citizens appreciated that too as well. So please send our thank you to them. It's a lot of long hours and early mornings and late nights away from their families, so we appreciate their get on the roads. And it's not easy. There's a lot of treacherous stuff that could have happened to them, so we appreciate them being safe and all that stuff there. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Hertzberg?
Thank you. Go Navy. But anyway, with all the great things that come along with the holiday season, we also have some, bad actors. So be on the lookout for phishing emails, texts, and your front porch pirates. I know the past few weeks I've already been inundated on all 3 of my cell phones and all 3 of my email accounts with phishing texts. And if you're not familiar, they're usually worded in a way that gives you a sense of urgency, wanting you to call or click a link. So I would just say think before you click on any links. If you are wondering about the context of the email or the text, just call the company directly. The ones that are coming to me that look kind of real come from UPS and Amazon. So just be careful before you divulge any personal information and before you click any links or open any attachments on your phone or email. So I just want to put that out there.
Good reminder. Good reminder, because because there was a lot of that going on during the political season too, I'm sure. So, yeah, so good reminder, thank you. All righty. That takes us on to item public to be heard. I don't have any cards. Okay. All right. I can't guess who it might be from. Thank you. John Langley from American Legion.
Madam Mayor, City Council, thank you for letting me come up here and speak. Wanted to tell you a little bit about a couple of things that we got going on in the near future, but I also want to talk about what happened during Veterans Day. So Veterans Day, we held a ceremony on November the 9th at 1:30. It kind of coincided with City of Colorado Springs moving theirs an extra hour to the right. And so it was running a little bit later than what we normally do. And we had meals for 150 people there. And we had a light showing because of, I think, the weather that had been going on for the last couple of days. But I wanted to, a little birdie asked me to repeat some of the information that I put out during the ceremony. In 1980, about 18% of the U.S. adults were veterans. Today, it's approximately 5%. And of active duty service members comprise less than 0.5% in the U.S. population. So thank you for all the service members that are out there putting their lives on the line today. And thank you to all the veterans that did that in the past. This Friday, on the November 15th, we have our ALR Steak Night. It is not a ribeye, it is a New York strip, a baked potato salad bar. And the membership voted so that any first responders that show up in uniform there, they're going to get $5 off of their meal, and they get moved to the front of the line. So if they put in a ticket, the ticket goes in so that they can get back to work, but they move it to the front of the line. So that's a good thing.
I see them writing madly back there, yes.
Well, about a month ago, we had 6 on-duty policemen come in, and so we were appreciative of that. And it was right at the end of our steaks, so we had to run and go buy some more steaks so that we could feed other people. That we gave the steaks to the police officers, and then ran and got some more steaks so that we were all covered. On the 22nd, we have a meatloaf dinner. And also on 11/18 to 11/22 is American Education Week. So keep that in your minds also. On the 28th of November, we're going to be having our community Thanksgiving dinner. It's free. So if there are people that can't afford to or are away from their families and just don't want to cook, then they can come on down to Legion, and that's going to be from 12 to 3. On December 7th, we have our auxiliary that is doing breakfast with Santa, and it's free and open to the public. So I think they're doing pancakes again this year, pancake breakfast, and then Santa comes up there and kids get to sit on his lap and tell them everything and good stuff. And then also we have our oratorical contest that's coming up. So if they are in high school and less than 20 years old, especially the speech students, if they go online and look up American Legion Oratorical, they have certain things about the Constitution that they have to give a pre-made speech for, and then things are pulled out of a bag and they have to talk about certain amendments or something like that. And so it's highly competitive, but it's something really neat to see these young students getting out there and and showing that they have the gumption to get out in front of people, one, and then two, that they are well-versed in the Constitution. That is it, unless you have any questions.
You're braver than I am to do something like that. Yeah. Any questions? Thank you, John. All right. Yes.
And Councilman Rick, thank you for the. Thank you for the donation for the food, and what we didn't use, we sent to a local food shelter so that they could use that food instead of it going to waste.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. It's kind of sad when you have to pay for dinner and you don't get to eat it, huh? Yeah, it's the way it goes some days.
Sure, it was great.
Yep, it was very good. Thank you. Yes. All right, that takes us on to item 7, the consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately at the discretion of council. I want to point out, I did send one just kind of slight correction to Joni, just to clarify something that she's going to put in the minutes. It was just about, it said I had been to PPACG and spoken with 30 kids. It sounded like I spoke to them there. We just kind of fixed that sentence up. So that would be as amended, right, Joni? Yes. Okay. All righty. So what would council like to do with item 7A? Councilmember Estes.
Move to approve consent agenda.
Councilmember Hinton.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, and you did that as amended, right? Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, please vote.
Six yes, motion carried.
All right, thank you. That takes us on to item 8, old business. 8A, second reading of ordinance 1804, an ordinance amending chapter 10.24, school zones, section 10.24.010, school zone fee of the Fountain Municipal Code. Ms. Williams.
Good evening. Nothing has changed since the first reading. This is again just kind of cleaning up the code language and making sure it matches our current model traffic code and ensuring that we don't have to keep changing that every time we change the model traffic code.
Okay, any questions from council? Any questions from anyone in the audience? Okay, seeing none, what would council like to do? Councilmember Rick.
Move to approve ordinance 1804 on second reading.
Councilmember Hersberg.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberation? Seeing none, please vote.
Six yes, motion carried.
Okay, item 8B, second reading of ordinance 1805, an ordinance amending chapter 1.12, general penalty, section 1.12.070, right to trial by jury, jail exceptions of the Fountain Municipal Code. Ms. Williams.
This one has also not changed since the first reading. This is just lowering the maximum penalty to $500. That way that allows us to not have a jury trial for some of our most petty offenses in municipal court.
Okay, is there any questions from council? Okay, is there any questions from anyone in the audience? Okay, seeing none, what would council like to do? Councilmember Hinton.
I'd like to make a motion to approve on second reading ordinance number 1805.
Okay, do we have a second? Councilmember Hersberg.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberation? Seeing none, please vote.
Six yes, motion carried.
Okay, that takes us on to item 8C, second reading of ordinance 1806, an ordinance creating chapter 13.05, water adequacy within Title 13, utilities of the Fountain Municipal Code, establishing requirements for adequate water supply and potable water service. Mr. Murphy. where are
Actually, I'm
you?
going to handle this one this
Okay.
evening, Mayor.
Thank you.
And this item is the second reading. It has not changed from the first reading, and it is simply to establish the requirements for developers to provide and/or demonstrate that they can provide adequate water supply for the service to their proposed developments. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, are there any questions from anyone on council? Are there any questions from anyone in the audience? All right, seeing none, what would council like to do? Councilmember Hertzberg.
I'd like to move to approve ordinance 1806 on second reading.
Councilmember Estes.
Second.
Any further deliberation? Seeing none, please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
Okay, that takes us on to item D. I am opening a public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 1807, setting appropriations for the funds, offices, and departments of the City of Fountain, Colorado for the fiscal year 2025, beginning January 1st, 2025. And this is more simply known as the budget.
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is the second reading of the budget ordinance for the fiscal year for 2025. We met on this on October 22nd with the first reading. There have been no changes since then. So there was also a notice of the public hearing posted in the November 1st Gazette per the city clerk. With that, I'm just going to go through a couple of the slides. Paul, this doesn't want to work for me. Can you go to the next one, please? Keep going, if you would, please. So these are the tables, the same tables that you saw within the first reading of your exhibit in the budget document. If you notice, I've just updated the second reading proposed budget column. There are no changes in the middle column there since the first reading. So we are still at the same number for total revenues for the general fund. Paul, if you'd go to the next one. Same for the expenditures in the general fund as well. This includes all of the capital projects that were approved by City Council during our work session. If you will remember, we did have 3 work sessions with City Council, 2 in September, 1 on October 1st, which also had public input. Paul, if you'd go to the next one, please. So this is still where the fund balance estimated tables will sit for the general fund. Currently, at the end of 2025, we look to be sitting at an unassigned fund balance of 22.2%. By charter, we are required, well, we're supposed to maintain 20%, including the 3% Tabor Reserve. Paul, if you'd go to the next one. This is the water fund. Again, same revenues and expenditures with no changes in the middle column. Paul, next one, please. Electric fund. Also, you'll see that this does include the capital for the substation, which we do have designated cash to pay for. Paul, the next one. The miscellaneous funds. Again, these are all the same with no adjustments in that middle column there. At the very end, you see the grand total for all of the funds, where we will be dipping into the fund balance of about $2 million. Paul, if you'd go to the last one for me. This, Councilmember Rick, you had requested this table be included in tonight's presentation. So this is the projects of public interest that were put together by the city manager that are included in the 2025 budget. However, I would like to point out there are 4 in here. If you look at about right in the middle, and I would use the pointer, but it's not working. The firehouse number 4 annual lease payment, and then the 3 projects underneath that, the August splash pad, and then the 2 playground equipments. Those, well, thank you, Scott. Those are all actually tentatively scheduled right now for the 2026 budget, and so are not included in the 2025 budget that is up for consideration and approval this evening. So with that, I will open it up to City Council with questions.
Okay, is there any comments from city council members up here? Questions? And thank you for that chart. That makes it really, really easy to see.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Hinton?
I think Councilmember Estes had it.
I heard her shaking her head.
No, oh, okay.
I heard her shaking her head. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I wanted to just make sure, obviously, we're staying on this slide, but wanted to make sure that the public sees this is where your money is going. And I hope that we, as a council and a staff, we're doing good stewards of the money that has been brought into the city. And there's lots of good things that are happening and lots of good things still to come to happen with these projects. So I just want to make sure that the public understands that we're doing our best to improve the quality of life in our city. And some of these projects we had a lot that we wanted to narrow down and get to. But as a council, we felt that these were one of the most important ones that needed to have some attention.
Todd, you have a couple on there as ROW. Let's explain what that is to the audience.
The right-of-way?
Yeah,
Yes. So the right-of-way maintenance contract, we got a lot of good comments again this year. We went to a private outsourcing. We actually went with two companies. One handles the north end of the city and the other handles the south. So we do that under the budget process, and it actually, if you look at it, if we added personnel to do it, we're probably saving money by having the private companies do it. They've done a great job, and we're getting great feedback, so we're expanding that to a couple of other areas to include some of our entryway areas. We're also going to try to work a little bit better with CDOT, and that's totally up to CDOT. We'd like to improve some of the areas like up by Highway 85, 87, the Walmart area. We hate how those weeds look in those certain areas. It just doesn't look professional for the city, but those are not our areas. So we're going to try, Bob's doing his best to work with them on how we can get in there and help improve some of those areas along 85, 87. So that would be the right-of-way areas. The Zeroscape that's up there, Gordy McCormick, he's going to be taking on a project where we're going to be transitioning a lot of our medians and right-of-way areas that require watering and the water to Zeroscaping. So this is year 1 of 3, which ultimately will pay for itself by the savings that we'll get from not having to water those.
Okay, yeah, when we put acronyms up there, I just want to make sure everybody understands what they're for. Okay, so no more further questions or comments from council right this minute. Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to bring it back out to the public. If there's anybody from the public that has a question, please come down to the dais and turn on the mic and state your name for the record. So please come down. Yep, this one over here in the middle, yep.
Good evening, Connie Weisenhunt. Shauna, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I wondered, can you teach us a little bit about the category transfers out?
Sure. So the transfers, are you talking about from the utility funds and into the general fund?
It was just on one of the sheets there, the category, and it just was defined as transfers out with amounts on it, and I just wondered what that fell under.
Paul, if you could go back to either the electric or the water slide, please. Are you looking here down at the bottom that, sorry, I've got that little pointer here. This one here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what that is for is there's actually one in the electric fund and then there's also one in the water fund for, those are transfers out to the general fund. So that way utilities is paying for their share of the centralized services such as finance, HR, things like that are housed 100% out of the general fund. So that way the general fund ends up being reimbursed and paid back for the time and energy that is spent by the centralized departments working on things for the utility funds.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
My second question was in regards to, and I'm not sure who answers it, there were a lot of issues and disappointments over the summer with the AGA splash pad. And there was a second motor or something that had been purchased for a backup, and it seemed to just be out of sync all summer long, which was leaving the community with trying to find something to entertain their children with. And I just wondered what the plans were, because I did see it in the budget quite a bit, and I'm not sure who has the answers for that, but that's my second question.
Yeah, we had, how many days the splash pad was down? And,
I don't know off the top of my head.
not off the top of my head. It actually was down less days this last summer than it was the summer before. And it was not for the motor, it was for something
The
else.
pump.
For the
There was a
pump.
Yep.
And we are on a routine maintenance plan with that now, so it was down a lot less days than last year. And, which we were waiting on the motor the summer before, but we weren't this year. And I think when they got in there, they thought they were going to be able to do it without shutting it down. But it ended up, they had to shut it down for 2 days, I think it was?
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah, and of course, it had to be the hottest 2 days of the year, but that's always the way it goes. It's like you're air conditioning your house, but it was down a lot less days. So it is on a maintenance plan to keep routine maintenance on that.
Yeah, and I don't know if people understand that every single fixture at that park on a daily basis actually gets pulled off and scrubbed. It's a very labor-intensive process. Paul, if you go back to that list of projects,
That last slide, Paul.
the very last slide, yeah, you'll see some money on there for Aga Park, the restroom. But one of the things that council's talked about as well is expand the Aga splash pad. And so one of the discussions we're going to be bringing back to the city council is, do we expand it? Do we look at sort of modernizing the equipment and changing some of that equipment out? So there's going to be some discussions in this upcoming year about that very issue.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else from the public that has any other questions or comments about anything about the budget tonight? Do we have anyone online?
No one online tonight, ma'am?
Okay, going. Okay, I'm closing the public hearing and bringing it back up here to the dais with the council. Is there any further discussion among the council, or what would the council like to do? Councilmember Rick.
Move to approve ordinance 1807 on second reading.
Okay, Councilmember Estes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberation? Seeing none, please vote.
Six yes, motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Thank you and your department, all the departments for all the hard work with this, so thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, that takes us on to item 9, new business. 9A, consideration of items removed from the consent agenda. There were none. Item 9B, Resolution 24-038, a resolution adopting the City of Fountain Strategic Plan Vision, Priorities, and Objectives 2025 through 2027. Mr. Trilch.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Well, you just passed your budget, and so now here for this evening to present a resolution to adopt your strategic vision, priorities, and strategic objectives that really go hand in hand with the city budget. So the Fountain City Council acknowledges that a simple, focused, and accountable plan is needed to convey the council's principal guidance and meet key requirements of a community that continues to develop and modernize. Throughout 2024, City Council has participated in a year-long process to evaluate current conditions, update their enduring vision for Fountain, and provide city administration and staff specific priorities to be addressed between 2025 and the end of 2027. This public planning process has included analysis and review of previous strategies, evaluation of recent conditions in the Fountain community, as well as multiple strategy workshops and feedback sessions that have facilitated the design and development of the strategic guidance that is put forth in this document. The City Council has met in public work sessions in March and April of 2024 to review and assess the vision statement and develop the 2025 to 2027 strategic priorities. They were both presented and confirmed to City Council on May 29th by Resolution 24020. So if you look at the slide there, that is the city's summarized vision statement and enduring interests, which were approved by that resolution. Can you go to the next slide, Paul? And these were the strategic priorities that were also adopted in at that time in that resolution. So draft strategic objectives were then presented to City Council at the July 2024 City Council work session and were approved to be considered for adoption into the final 2025-2027 strategic plan. So the resolution that I present this evening is to formally adopt the 2025 to 2027 strategic objectives, which support the priorities that are here on this screen. If you go to the next slide, Paul. So I didn't list all of them because there's 28 of them, but Council, you've had a chance to review these during the previous offsite and in your packet. You can see the breakdown there. There's 6 to 8 supporting specific objectives, which are really action items. They're plans, initiatives, projects, things that need to get done to directly support Council's strategic priorities. And you've had a chance to review those. 28 of them that staff will accomplish over the next 3 years, all the way through 2027. So pending any questions about the objectives, my recommendation is that Council approve the resolution.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh,
All right,
next slide, Paul. Sorry, Mayor.
Oh.
I do have one alibi,
Okay,
actually, yeah. And this is pending the approval of the resolution. The next step will just be really packaging the final strategic plan. We're taking a little bit of a different approach this time. So you see on the left there, That's the way that we have presented the strategic plan in the past. So here's a printed booklet of it, and we've had them here at City Hall available for anyone to pick up, in a kind of full size. And so this time we're going with what we call a cargo pocket sized version. So same stuff. If you see the cover there, and if you, and kind of talking about Veterans Day, if you've served in the military, it kind of has a field manual look to it. And so that is just a little bit of an eye catcher for those in our military community. Hopefully will perk their curiosity and they'll pick up a copy and take a look at it. So pending your approval of this, the package version, that's what it'll look like on the cover. So sorry, Mayor, I just wanted to throw that last piece in before
That's
you
okay,
consider the
'cause
resolution. Thank
One
you.
of my questions was, when do you think they'll be available?
January.
January, okay?
Yeah.
All righty, sounds good. All right, little pocket version, you can slip in your purse or your pocket. Okay, thank you. Any questions from anyone on council? I know we've gone through this a lot, but sometimes you have something that pops in your mind at the last minute. Councilmember Rick.
I'm not sure whether putting field manual will inspire interest or inspire people to leave it alone. So.
Yeah, we did kind of test it a little bit. We took it to the Fort Carson Strategy Summit, the mayor and I presented the cover here and explained it, and it was pretty well received. But it gets a little bit of, for some people, just a little bit of a smirk or whatever. And again, the idea is that it just kind of sparks a little bit of curiosity when they see it, and that they pick it up and maybe open up, take a look at it. So that's the hope, and we hope that it's a useful document for council and the community.
Yeah, he even has a little section on, if it doesn't go to the bottom of the page, it says, this left blank on purpose, you know. So he tried really hard to.
I won't get into the difference between the field manual and the technical manual, but, this military stuff, you
All
can
right.
do all kinds of stuff.
All right. Hey, even I can get it, so there's hope for some of us, right? Okay. All right, so any further discussion from council? Any questions or comments from anybody in the audience tonight? Okay, please come down and state your name for the record and turn on the microphone.
Good evening, Connie Weisenhunt. I actually haven't seen this yet. I missed it, but there was a key word that you used, and you said that the staff would be following through on the objectives. So is there going to be go-to teams for each objective, like for the small businesses, and then that's listed in the book as well? I missed that part, so sorry.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, so each objective is specifically crafted to identify what action item needs to get done, which department is specifically responsible for it, when it will be accomplished, and what accomplished looks like. So the objective provides enough information for each department then to look at that task and then come up with a specific plan that may include community involvement in order to get it accomplished. And you'll see one of the priorities there is focusing on business. And so there are several objectives in there where you may expect that there would be staff interaction with the community at that level. But it's really up to the staff to develop that specific implementation plan to meet the intent of the objective.
So who are you referring to when you say staff? Is that the council? Is that the team here? Or that's the individual that would be like police officers? Or, I mean, like, that's part of my question too.
The staff would be the departments of the city. So, yes. So the council has provided the strategic policy guidance. Those are those 4 priorities. And then the staff, the departments of the city, like the police department, fire department, public works, they're the ones that are responsible and identified in those objectives to get things done.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that answer it for you, Connie?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from anyone else? Anyone online?
No one online, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, seeing no further questions from anyone in the audience, I'm going to bring it back up to the dais. Any further questions from council? If not, what would council like to do? Councilmember Estes.
Move to approve Resolution 24-038.
Councilmember Hinton.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Resolution 24-038. Is there any further deliberation? Seeing none, please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right, thank you, John,
Thank
for all
you.
your hard work.
Thank you.
Now the staff work begins. All righty. We're on to item 9C, first reading of ordinance 1808, an ordinance of the City of Fountain repealing and reordaining Chapter 17.16 of Title 17 of the Fountain Municipal Code to other uses regulated regarding natural medicine businesses and add nature medicine business to permitted use and amending Chapter 17.04 zoning districts, Section 17.04.150B, Planned Industrial District Use Regulations of the Fountain Municipal Code. We have two people on this one, Ms. Williams and Ms. Martinez.
Thank you. Christy Martinez with the Planning Department. I will start it off, and if there's any questions in terms of legalities and what the city can and can't do, Grace is here to answer any of those questions. So as read into the record, this is an ordinance to amend Title 17 to incorporate regulations regarding the natural medicine businesses. This came about from the Natural Medicine Act of 22, which was on a voter-approved ballot measure to allow the use of psychedelic mushrooms for medicinal uses, which was then subsequently adopted into Colorado state statutes in 23 with Senate Bill 23-290 for the natural medicine regulation and legalization. Within that ballot measure and subsequent state statutes, there are very limited regulations that local governments can and cannot do when it comes to regulating the use of the psilocybin or mushrooms, where they can be located, where they can't be located. There's not an ability to outright prohibit them. So local governments can really only regulate it in terms of time, place, and manner. So in coordinating with various other municipalities throughout the state, and the definition under the state statute, natural medicine businesses are defined as any of the following entities licensed under the Regulatory Act, and includes a natural medicine healing center, a natural medicine cultivation facility, a natural medicine product manufacturer, or a natural medicine testing facility, or other licensed entity created by the state licensing authority. So that is the overarching definition of all of those uses. In looking at where it would most fit in the appropriate zone district within the city, it had been determined it would be within the planned industrial zone district. In the ordinance, it does comply with the statute, which does have a distance requirement of a minimum of 1,000 feet from any property used as a child care center, schools, residential child care facility, or any property that is used or zoned for residential dwellings, which would include single-family detached, single-family attached, or multifamily. They are all collective under residential dwelling. The measurement of the 1,000 feet is through the direct access using a pedestrian route, so you can't dash across I-25, you can't, swim across Fountain Creek to do your measurement. It has to be through the direct pedestrian access. And it does limit the operating hours of the natural medicine businesses to Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So this is a zoning map. The areas kind of in this lighter pink areas are zoned the planned industrial. Primarily, it would be along the western side of I-25 and then the eastern side of I-25 at the far north end, north of Highway 16, which would generally comply. This was not a very detailed of each individual property that is zoned planned industrial, but those are some of the largest areas within the city that do have that zone district. There is some frontage along the east side of I-25 along Banley Drive that is also zoned planned industrial. However, as you can see, there is some of the yellow areas that are residentially zoned parcels that would prohibit or potentially prohibit those locations from, or those types of natural businesses from being located in that area due to the proposed 1,000-foot limitation. Within the ordinance, it would also require an amendment to the planned industrial listing of the permitted uses, which would then list a natural medicine business as a permitted use, which is the subsequent part of the natural healing ordinance that's been presented tonight. Are there questions for staff?
So we are here because of an initiative that was passed on the ballot.
Correct.
Correct? Really, really limiting us.
Correct.
I think they learned second time around after the marijuana thing, to make it, we have no choice. This is in our city, whether we want it or not. We're just trying to say where we want it.
Correct.
Okay, I want to make that really, really clear, and I think that's super important, because citizens, some of them could be upset that we're allowing this in to our city. So Grace, if we do nothing, what happens?
Then they could go into any zoning district that would be on this map, and then it wouldn't have to be 1,000 feet from a residential area. The state statute does provide for 1,000 feet from a childcare facility and schools already, but not the residential areas.
Okay, all righty.
And if you wanted to move to the next slide real quick, I did just, sorry, the last slide. This one. This is just, to kind of emphasize Mayor's point here. This is really all the restrictions they put on local jurisdictions and being able to regulate this, right? So there are, a ton of things here saying what we cannot do in order to regulate this.
Okay. Do you want to go on with your part of it before we take questions, or do you guys have specific questions for Christie?
I can wait.
Okay. Okay, all right, go ahead, Grace.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have a second part. It was more of just emphasizing that point in here
Okay.
for questions. Sorry about that.
Okay, all right. So I don't have any clue who was first, because I don't have that. We're going to leave that up there, though. I'll just start at my left, and we'll go to the right. Is everybody okay with that? So Councilmember Rick?
So, Grace, as I understand it, these are the same restrictions that we have on adult-oriented businesses that, to keep them away from kids, minors, making sure that they're staying safe and not exposing them to undue influence. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I had, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Applegate?
Okay, I have to ask the question, is this an unfunded mandate? And if so, what resources are we getting from the state in order to enforce these rules? This could be a question for you, this could be a question for Chief, this could be a question for Scott, so I'm
So
just asking.
the Department of Revenue is tasked with doing all the licensing of these businesses, and they are, in the act, they are not allowed to issue a license unless they have looked at the location and confirmed that it meets the setback requirements and the local jurisdiction's area. Not to say there wouldn't be a mistake that we would potentially have to enforce, but they are supposed to not issue a license unless they meet the local standard and they show you either have a lease agreement or an ownership interest in the property you're in and the property is in the correct place.
Okay, that's the main, so they're footing the bill for the licensing, then is what they're saying. So they're covering like, if.
Right, and they shouldn't issue a license unless they are in the right spot, so we shouldn't have to, like, if they're licensed, they should be in the right spot already. Of course, we'd want to double check that, but that is part of the Department of Revenue's responsibility is to make sure that no one is getting a license at all unless they're in the right spot based on the local jurisdiction's ordinances.
Okay, so they're verifying for, yeah, like they have to be legitimate business and they're verifying all that, so.
Right.
Okay, all righty, cool.
Yeah, I just want to go on record that I'm highly upset that we even have to make this decision or even vote on something like this, and that we've been forced upon us to be able to do something. So it's not something that I don't like it in our city at all, period. That's just my own personal stand. You can agree or disagree with me, but I don't like any of that in our city at all. So that's where I'm at.
Councilmember Hertzberg?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question kind of for Christy Grace and then maybe even Chief as well. When it says in here a minimum of 1,000 feet, are we allowed to expand upon that, make it more than a minimum of 1,000 feet? I mean, we could make it, and so I guess my question to Chief is 1,000 feet good enough, really? Or is there a better number? If we're allowed to extend it, is there a better number?
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinions aside, I think the 1,000 feet is what the minimum requirement's going to be, and we would not have the ability to expand that. If the business had a legal area to place their business, I don't think that we'd have the ability to say you have to move out to 1,500 feet. I think the 1,000 feet is about as much. Now, I think they could put it at 2,000 feet, and obviously that's fine on their own volition, but I don't think we have the ability to change that.
Okay.
And Councilman Applegate, I know of no external funding that's coming to law enforcement or to any other city resource to be able to help us enforce or do any of this. I think it's all going to be similar to legalized marijuana. It is what it is. So I know of no monies coming our way. Did I answer all of your questions?
It does. Thank
Okay.
you.
So, sorry, just to add in, legally, we can expand the requirement. 1,000 feet is well-established as a constitutional limit for all kinds of vice businesses, right? Our adult businesses, all other kinds of businesses. So that's kind of how it's become somewhat of a standard. We can talk about expanding that. I know some other cities have looked at expanding that amount. I think that, I know that Colorado Springs has proposed a mile. I think that probably doesn't fit into the reasonable category, especially looking at our zoning map, because we can't outright ban it through adding so much distance that there would be no land available in Fountain. So that's one thing we have to look at when we're seeing how much could we feasibly expand that.
Okay, that's fair. And then my second question is in here, it's described as services prescribed and under the supervision of a facilitator. So it doesn't say like MD, doctor, so facilitator, that word I'm a bit concerned with, so.
Yeah, so a facilitator is going to be its own special license. It's in the regulations through the Department of Regulatory Services, which already license all kinds of professions like barbers, veterinarians, all those things. You have to have some sort of basis. We might not all agree on what that is. Some of them are doctors. Some of them can be licensed counselors. I don't remember the entire list off the top of my head. They do have to have some basis in some kind of background that's related, you know, whether we think it's related or not. It's not necessarily just someone off the street can say, I would like to be facilitator. They do have to show some kind of background related to health and human services.
Okay, so when we say medical, how is it said in here, medical business, we don't necessarily mean MD, doctor, medical business.
Right,
Okay.
it could be, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Rick?
Can you take, Paul, can you take the slide back to the map? Christie, I'm trying to think, other than Ventana, do we have any planned industrial areas that are up against residential areas?
There's some areas along Rustique that are also zoned planned industrial that do have some surrounding residential properties. Carson's not zoned up there. Along Banley, north of Highway 16, south of 16, there's some areas that do have planned industrial zoning. Along South Santa Fe, where you have the Magellan gas pumps south of the cemetery, we've got some industrial there, as well as the
But
western side.
not a lot.
Not much.
Not much, okay. So it's probably the best we can do, given the restrictions that the state has put on us. We can't get it much further, other than Ventana. If they were to try and get into Ventana, there's not a lot of, into the planned industrial area near Ventana, there's not a lot of buildings available that they could move into. They would have to get somebody to build a building for them in order to get close to those houses out there. And I don't know if that's going to be cost effective.
Well, it's within 1,000 feet, so they couldn't do it.
Yeah, so, other than that, I don't think we're exposing people to any risk, significant risk in this case. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Applegate?
So not to get hung up on the same thing, but back to the medical question. So they do it's not recreational. They have to have some sort of documentation from some sort of counselor or doctor in order to acquire said product, correct?
So they're not really licensing the patients in this case, they're licensing the facilitator and the healing center. And so anyone who's over 21 who wants to access a healing center can go in and ask for the access, and it will be up to those providers or whoever is running that healing center as to if they're going to serve them under their healing center. But it's not like medical marijuana where an individual has a license, it's like the actual organization does. So then it's like, are we considering that organization doing it recreationally or medically, right? They're gonna argue that they're doing it medically, right? But it's not down to the individual patient.
Okay. Elephant in the room. Has anybody talked to the base commanders like at Fort Carson? What are their thoughts on this?
I haven't spoken to them.
No. Honestly, that's a caution of concern for me right now is just the soldiers, you know, I mean, I'm concerned. I mean, it seems like drugs just walk down the street in the state anymore, so.
Well, get back to they worded the initiative very carefully that we don't have a choice if it passed. And didn't pass by much. Grace, we've talked about where they're going to go to the healing centers. What about growing it? Is there any way we can, where can they grow? Or
So,
is-
yeah, sorry, did you
Or,
finish your
I
question?
mean, is that something we need to,
Yeah, so individuals can have a 12 by 12 garden bed in their own property to grow however much can grow in that small area, and the rest for their own personal use. The sale of any of these substances by a non-healing center is still completely criminalized and things like that, but the personal use of it is not, the personal growing of it is not. And then if you're growing any more than that amount, it has to be in a grow facility that has its special license.
so you can grow this out in the open in your backyard and doesn't have to be, and you're going to put a sign on it that says no one under 21 can pick from my garden?
Ideally, they would put a sign.
I mean, you got to have a little sarcasm because it's a little frustrating thing. How about community gardens? Can they grow these in the community gardens?
No.
Okay, so they can't rent a space in a community garden in any of our parks or recreation, because we do have some community gardens around town and at the regional park.
Yeah, the regulations specifically say on a residential property, so I don't think those would be considered residential. I suppose it's possible a community garden could be in somebody's residence. That's probably the only like possible overlap. I'm not sure 100% on that, but we can look into that. I'm not sure that a ton of people have thought of that question quite yet.
People are creative.
Yes.
Okay, and then how do we regulate it? Do we inspect them? Do the state inspect them? And what are the penalties if they're not operating correctly with the right people that are licensed to be in there?
Yeah, so I mean, there's still enforcement under the criminal code. There's obviously the regulatory enforcement. That's pretty much just gonna be fines and revoking license and stuff like that. But, you know, they've still left a lot of the same criminal prohibitions against everything that doesn't fall specifically under this act, right? So that's still there.
Okay, and then, I lost my last question. It went down to Corey, I guess, I don't know. Okay, I'll think of it again. Go ahead, Councilmember Applegate.
Okay. So you said that anybody can grow, and was a 12-foot by 12-foot bed? So what if they need more than that? Can we put a line in our ordinance that says they have to grow outside city limits?
So they
Even if they aren't in
can't,
there?
can't grow more than that. That would be illegal
Right,
for them to
but say
grow
they're
more
a huge pot shop, say they're or a huge mushroom shop, and they're moving pounds and pounds of this stuff. Obviously, they're not going to be growing in this tiny little space. They're going to have like an actual industrial farm. Can we make an ordinance where it says they have to put it outside the city?
So
Could we
right
do that?
now,
No, that would fall under the definition of the natural medicine businesses for the growing and manufacturing of it. So what Grace is referring to is an individual within their 12 by 12 that's allowed under the state statute. A commercial enterprise would fall under the natural healing business or the natural medicine businesses.
Right. Okay, but what I'm
So no, you
but
can't,
what I'm
you can't prohibit them, is what we're saying.
because
in
they're a
state
type of
statute.
natural medicine business that
Okay.
we can't prohibit.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Hersberg asked about distance, and you said not recommended to increase the distance. What about days of the week? Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 is what this recommends.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's going to get back into the reasonableness, right? Generally, businesses are able to operate between 8 to 5. So if someone's arguing that we're putting unreasonable prohibitive restrictions on there, I feel like that's, you know, kind of an area that you would look, right? How many businesses are regulated to, you know, you can't be open 5 days a week, 8 to 5. I know some cities are choosing to do like 7 to 7 or other time periods like that. Obviously, we want to, regulate this a lot stronger than we can. I just think it's hard to think of an example of a business that's regulated more strictly than 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. But always reasonableness, that's always a fun argument to make.
Well, yes. Okay, established. So if a preschool, or for example, is established, they can't go in with 1,000 feet of it. So if one of these goes in an industrial center, essentially the school has to be told, now you can't go there, even though we have a need for childcare in our community, right?
I mean, they wouldn't say you can't go there, but they would potentially be able to be within 1,000 feet. They would be able to be closer to each other than normal.
So if the mushroom was there, already first, they were there, a school could go in right next door to them?
If the school feels that that's within whatever their school regulations are, I mean, I would think that most schools receiving federal funding probably wouldn't feel that they could do that, but there's nothing in this act or in our ordinance that would say you can't come in and be closer than that amount if it's not already established.
And we don't license childcare centers, the state does, so that would be up to the state, okay. All right, is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Councilmember Hinton?
I think Jennifer had a question.
Oh, thank you.
So if this ordinance passed and a business wanted to come in to an established area with other businesses, but within what this says they can, the other businesses that are already there, are they going to have any say or community meetings or anything about that particular business coming in? Or is this just business as normal? It's within an ordinance, they can be there without, I'm not being very clear, but do you know what I'm saying?
So if a natural medicine business were to locate in an existing facility, would the other businesses that already exist in that same building have a say as to whether or not? Generally, no. From a municipal level, we can't prohibit them, and if they meet the minimum, then they are allowed to be there.
Okay, once again, if this passes tonight, we're not saying we approve or disapprove of healing centers or the product that they sell. We're saying that we're trying to regulate them the best they can within the restrictions that I know I'm being super repetitive, but you never know who might have just signed on. We're working within the law that was given to us by the citizens of the state of Colorado who passed this on their ballot 2 years ago, right? And the reason we're dealing with this tonight is the law goes into effect in January. And we want to make sure we have time for the 2 readings and publication and all that. So we're just set and ready to go in January. Okay. I'm not seeing any more lights on here from any other council members. I do have the city clerk light. No? Okay. All right, going to take it out to the audience and any questions? Mr. Couch.
Just for the sake of understanding, the property along Pond Terrace where I am, the county is pressuring some of my neighbors to make sure they have their land stay in agricultural, that they have agricultural. If somebody approaches to lease the land and they're growing, they could easily be 1,000 feet from any residence. I think it said from the property line, didn't it?
And how it's measured is from a property line to the business.
I was going to say, it's more than 1,000 feet from my property line to the railroad track. If you would consider the railroad track a natural impediment, there's apartments right on the other side, but that would mean that they could easily be in that area without restriction.
The natural medicine businesses are only proposed under this ordinance to be located within a planned industrial zone district. So the area that
Okay,
you're
so as long
referring
as
to
it's
is
just
not
agriculture, it would-
zoned for planned industrial.
Because I know they've already approached to try and grow marijuana in there, and I just trying to understand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please come down and state your name for the record, because we don't know who you are. But if somebody hears this tape 10 years from now, Connie, you want them to know who you are. Okay.
Connie Weisenhunt. So I'm looking for a little bit of clarity here. When we're talking about this being the first reading of the ordinance, is there room for adjustments in this, or this is firm and we're just bringing it out to the public? Because I'm feeling like there's opportunity to present to these businesses, like maybe you need to come to the table with two things that you think your company will benefit our city, whether it's like special funding that could go into some things for the kids, or something to contribute to the betterment of our community. So is there room to add something like that in this for the businesses to have more requirements? I guess that's what I'm asking. Like, it's solid, it's firm, you're just bringing it to everybody's attention?
Go ahead, Grace, I'll let you handle that
Yes.
one.
So there is some wiggle room to make time, place, and manner adjustments. So, if we wanted to extend the fee, kind of like we were talking about, there's some wiggle room there, right? And depending on what amount we can all decide is reasonable, we could potentially do something like that. Now, adding something like what you just suggested, unfortunately, would not fall under a time, place, or manner restriction. And so, unfortunately, those kind of ideas would be precluded by the state statute already. We have to only do things that specifically are time, place, manner, and also reasonable and don't conflict with the law. So that's like 5 factors, right, that we have to meet. So we've done a lot of work already to try to meet the best we can in that, not saying that there aren't things that we can do, but those are pretty strict restrictions that we have.
So then I guess the rest would fall upon the city, so that we're doing some educational stuff, like what it is, how it's grown, what the effects are, how it heals. If it's not used for a healing property or manner, then the side effects or the endangerment of it, and the educational part falls on the community, correct? So that's something that we need to start prepping for, is my thought. I'm not sure where we're going with it. Like, if it's solid, then it's solid, and there's no room to make adjustments. So that makes it a little difficult, in my opinion.
Well, personally, that's why I was hoping it failed, but unfortunately, it passed by a little bit. And, I made a statement up at the state capitol when they were passing the Senate bill. I said, because Chief Heber and I happened to be up there the day for Officer Becerra, and they were having the hearings to set the rulings. And I looked the chairman square in the eye, and I said, we're going down the same path we went with marijuana. Marijuana went for medical, and then it was now for recreational, and now everybody wants everything, and I feel like mushrooms is going to go down. That's my personal feeling. Mushrooms is going to pretty much go down the same path. And but yeah, you're right, it is up to the community to educate themselves, and I'm sure the county will be creating some programs. Unfortunately, they wrote a law that they learned from marijuana to write it better and stricter so that they could really limit us and not give us a choice as a community to opt in or opt out. We don't have that choice, and so that's where we are today. And we're sitting up here trying to make the best decisions that we can on something that is being forced upon our community, whether we want, every community in the state of Colorado, whether you want it or not. So all we can do is, like she said, time, the days of the week, the hours it's open, place, per the zoning, and time, place, and manner. Yeah.
So does it go back to the 1,000 feet is from the front door to the front door, or it's just 1,000 feet?
I'll leave that to Christy, yeah.
Sorry, the podium's kind of right in the middle of what I was going to read. It says, so it's measured from the property line of the property, so the residential property, the school property, whichever that property is, to the nearest portion of the building in which the services for the natural medicines would be provided using the direct pedestrian access. So as I said, you can't dash across I-25, you can't cross Fountain Creek. It's how it's measured as if somebody was to walk to that business.
So they could literally have, if you're in a cul-de-sac, you could have it in your neighbor behind you could have it because the 1,000 feet is measured by the sidewalk all the way around to where that cul-de-sac is. Does that, and that's why we're trying to be careful here. I mean, the reason I know that is when I was a kid, I went to a school called Lincoln Elementary, and there was a adult shop outside the school, and as regulations changed and the school expanded, the playground was literally built around the adult shop, and the sixth graders could peek over the fence during recess, and I think they've learned a lot from zonings like that and trying to keep things like that from occurring now. But, so it is, anybody else from the audience? Please come down and state your name for the record.
So my name is Bob Dotson. One of my questions is there like a nuisance ordinance going to be assigned to that?
Yeah, so nuisance would still be enforceable about this type of issue if it rose to that level. Of course, it's something that you can report about your neighbor, and then, the code enforcement staff will have to decide if it rises to that level.
I'm only concerned about how it's going to affect our first responders, because now they're dealing with, excuse my expression, druggies and dope heads or whatever you want to call them. And now they got to take care of that, and we have a true emergency down here, and all our resources are tied up on one of them facilities. And that's just why I said about the nuisance, because I wouldn't want one in my neighborhood, even though I don't have any small kids at home, I still have grandbabies that come over. And I don't want my chihuahua to be exposed either.
Yeah, I think the idea is that since they're calling it an administration session, which is how they're doing it, is that the idea is that they're hoping that the facilitators will have the folks come down from whatever they're experiencing before they're let out of the program. That's, kind of part of it being a whole session versus just, do it here and there. Whether that will work effectively, it's anyone's guess. But I do think that is the idea, is that hopefully they're not just saying, here, have it and leave. They're supposed to make it a longer term session to where it's not just be
So will
released
it be
immediately.
licensed and bonded as well? So maybe one of the ones get out of hand or at that facility and starts terrorizing or damaging the properties around it? I mean, would that place not be just like a bar? If a drunk leaves the bar and they served him drinks and they knew he was intoxicated and he caused it, the bar's liable.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be a licensing complaint, whether they're letting people go before they're, in a place where they're stable. That's the idea. I don't know how that enforcement will look, especially from the state side, of course, but that is the idea of it being a licensed professional versus the patient licensing that we've seen on, the marijuana side, is that there's supposed to be more of that supervision and more of that trying to prevent those kind of things from happening.
Thank you. I just think that maybe our citizens missed the message there of what this would really cause in the long run to our resources of the city, the county, and the state. Thank you so much for your time, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you. And this is only the first hearing. So if you're still concerned, there will be a second hearing on this at our next council meeting. Okay, anybody else in the audience? Okay, all right, I do have some lights up here on council, so I'm assuming we still have some more questions? Okay, I'll start on my right this time. Councilmember Hertzberg.
God, no worries. So Christy, can you just remind us what we're, as a council, considering tonight? What is the actual, I think we got a little bit off sidetrack, but what are we considering tonight to make sure that everybody understands that?
Tonight's ordinance would establish regulations within Title 17, which is zoning, which would regulate the natural medicine businesses, limiting it to a specific zone district, being the planned industrial zone district. It does establish the minimum distance requirements outlined in the statute of the 1,000 feet between zoning for single-family, residential, duplex, multifamily, as well as schools and childcare facilities, and limiting the operating hours from Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Within that ordinance, it would also allow for the natural medicine businesses to be listed as a permitted use within the planned industrial district only.
Yeah, and once again, this is a state statute. This isn't something that the city of Fountain brought. This is something that's been imposed upon us. So I ask you, as certain things happen, you get involved, read about it, research, help everybody understand what is happening in our state because it affects our city. And so that's all I'm putting out there.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm just circling back around just a little bit. I think what I understood you to say is if the council decided, we would have the liberty at least to say 1,500 feet if that was deemed reasonable. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then my second question is, are we allowed, because I know we can't be guilty of like targeting or anything like that, but are we allowed to look at our current availability of this type of space, identify potentially vulnerable areas, say this is within 1,000 feet of this school, this is within 1,000 feet of this residential. However, if we did 1,500 feet, we would be infusing some safety to that school or to this residential. Are we allowed to go that far into the weeds to identify the specific effects to our community map and sort of tailor within reason our number of feet to accommodate greater safety would just be my question.
Yeah, I think we could, I don't see any problem with doing that kind of analysis as long as we're making it a facially neutral, to use, the fancy legal term for it, reason why. That's why we kind of have to identify the number of feet or the type of zoned district. So what we couldn't do is make up probably a whole new zone district based on however that analysis came out and said, okay, they couldn't go into this one that really had nothing to do with something else. But in terms of, if we did that deep level of analysis on the map, and we were able to say, oh yes, we can see that this relates directly to, 1,750 feet or, whatever amount that we can come up with that makes sense. Again, we'd have to make sure there's still a decent amount of land available, and it's not just, okay, we found, 3 pockets in the city, right? We'd have to show that it's substantially available. Then we could try to find that middle ground.
Okay. I mean, if it's not superimposing a great deal of work, which I know we don't have tons of staff and hours to do that kind of stuff, but I would hate to have some pockets of areas that are under threat because it's 1,000, whereas if we would have just made it 1,200, they would have been safer. So that's just why I thought to ask for that type of analysis. Thank you.
Okay, before I get to Councilmember Rick, I just want to address something. So if we made an amendment to this tonight and amended it to say, we're going to adopt this, however, we're going to amend it to say 1,200 feet or 1,500 feet, and that would give you time, when is our next council meeting next week?
Yeah.
Good luck. That would give you time to kind of look at that and see what that would preclude, and you could come back at that meeting and say, you've analyzed it, and while you realize what our intention is, that we want to do that, it would be considered unreasonable because it would wipe out a lot of this. Would that be acceptable?
Christy is the one who's going to have to do that, so I'm going to defer to her.
I can certainly ask our GIS department to create a map because I would be
Right, but we
deferring to
could
as
go
well.
back to 1,000 at the next meeting if it came out to, in Grace's analysis, it came out to be too unreasonable.
Correct. Or we
Correct.
could keep it as 1,000 feet, we create the map, and on second reading, you increase that to
Okay,
a subsequent.
okay.
Either way.
All right, I just want to throw a couple options out there for people to mull on for a minute. Okay. All righty, Councilmember Estes.
My question is, as relates to other adult businesses, in our ordinance that already says 1,000 feet. So if we go to 1,200 or 15, are we creating an unreasonable expectation because we already have it at 1,000 feet for adult businesses?
So this state statute does specifically say that municipalities can increase the amount over 1,000 feet. I don't remember the adult business cases right off the top of my head, but the Supreme Court has ruled on those types of businesses, so they have kind of a different framework that we have to look at. But I do not think that just because we would potentially keep the adult businesses at 1,000, I don't think that would create a problem.
Okay, Councilmember Rick?
First, Grace, I want to say thank you. We've thrown a lot at you tonight, lots of different questions from both up here and the public, and you've done an outstanding job of answering so far, so thank you for that. One question for you and one question for Todd. This ordinance that we are considering tonight, just like any other ordinance, we can, at a later date, change it if we desire. Is that correct?
Yes, as long
So-
as we keep in the same framework.
As long as we keep it in the same framework. So if we don't do the 1,200 tonight or next week, could we still come back in December or January and change the distance based off of new information we have found?
As long as the new information is not so specific, like, you know, kind of like what Councilmember Herzberg was saying, that we're clearly targeting one exact location. But if we're just, you know, oh, we've done a lot more, you know, GIS work or whatnot, and now we have a more general understanding, then that would be perfectly fine.
Okay. So we have to do it now. We can wait to get a complete study. Second thing, for Todd. Connie brought up that some businesses may come in and say, hey, we're willing to spend X, Y, and Z do things in the city in order to get a permit. Taking away, this is a, you know, hallucinogenic drug. If another type of business came in with the same thing, hey, we want to see about getting a waiver, we're willing to do X, Y, and Z to help the city. Is that something that you can bring forward to the council and we can have a public discussion on to consider?
Typically, I mean, traditionally, when that would happen is kind of on a new build. So if it was somebody coming in that was building a new building, that's where we get into kind of off-site improvements, on-site improvements, those type of things. Typically, if somebody comes in and redevelops, and to give you an idea, so you can mental image distances, we have a request in right now from a business that wants to go into the strip mall where the Come On In is. And they have a limitation of 500 feet to be away from the middle school. But it looks like they're going to be about 500, just over 500. So they may be able to do that, but that gives you an idea of what 500 feet is. So you can, as you're looking at distances. But specifically, if someone was going to come in and move into that same strip mall where the Come On In is, we wouldn't talk to them about new fees or bringing something to the community unless it's a new building, and we would have that discussion with them in terms of the impacts they're going to have.
Okay, but if they came to us and said, hey, we're willing to build a brand-new park, give you X number of monies if you let us in here, is that something that you would routinely consider and bring to the council for consideration?
We wouldn't tie, we'll let you in. We wouldn't tie that to it. But anybody who would come and say they want to improve the community and this is how we want to improve that or improve the community, we would bring that to you. But we wouldn't tie it to we'll let you in if.
Okay.
Right?
And the state regulates this, we don't.
Right.
We just can set where they can go.
Yeah. In this case, from what I understand, if we did that, we would violate that state statute.
Okay.
Yeah, anyone can give us a gift. We can accept a gift from anyone, but we cannot tie it to whether they're allowed in or not.
Okay.
Yep.
That answers my question. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Were you finished?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, because your light's still on.
I'm sorry.
Okay, we do have one more question from the audience, so go ahead and come on down. Okay.
Connie Weisenhunt again. So I think my thought got maybe like miscrewed a little bit. Not a gift, but trying to find the positive in the situation and presenting it in the light of you're going to come into our city and a lot of our buildings are still under the grandfather clause unless it is a new build, and then they have all of these requirements to bring it up to current building and codes and things like that. But I meant like being in our community, like are you going to present to an hour at each of our schools about the importance of this as a healing medical thing and the importance of it not necessarily being used in that format. So just like things that they can contribute to our community that were in a positive note. And then I just wanted to share in regards to the vape possibly the vape shop possibly coming into the shopping center, that I can personally speak to Mr. Hicks and prior businesses that he's had, that is somebody who definitely would be contributing to our community in a good light and responsibly, watching out for our children. So just a thought there.
Thank you. Mr. Arcee, did you want to say something? I thought I saw your pencil raised.
Not sure I want to.
Okay. All right.
Not sure I want to.
Okay, please state your name for the record.
Steve Arcee. Start off with, so we can be bribed as long as we don't call it a bribe, right? Okay. I do want to say, now look, I wasn't for this when it was voted on for the state. I mean, I hadn't done the research at that point, and I always follow the science, as I like to point out. But it did pass. And so the question about being it made, are we going to make it easy for them or not? And I think there's a lot of hypocrisy that I keep hearing about, because, I mean, we get a new alcoholic place into this community, we get a new brewery, we get a new winery, and we laud it for we're bringing business into this community. So, and you pointed out, I mean, there's bars, tattoo parlors, vape shops within 1,000 feet of schools, et cetera, already. So I guess my concern is that, just making sure that we're not against it solely because we just don't like the concept of it. Again, when I voted for it initially, or when I rather voted against it, I didn't do the research. I do the research now, and I'm like, all right, well, it says it can help some people, and okay, if it works for them, it works for them. And I think that we should also look at it from the aspect of, I mean, if we're going to promote some of the other businesses that move into our community, I mean, how many liquor stores and bars do we need in a town of 30,000 people? But if a new one came in, we'd be all for it, and we wouldn't be trying to make it hard for them. And don't say we wouldn't, because we did. There's two within a half mile of here over the last couple of years that we've done exactly that for. So I just say, I think we should try and be a little bit more fair and keep open to what the research actually says, whether or not we actually agree with it personally or not, and just go from there. And again, I'm not necessarily for it, but I think it should be equitable. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hinton, and then Councilmember Hertzberg.
I know we're not supposed to answer questions, but just to Mr. Arcee, please don't categorize me as all, because I would not be for it. I'm not for liquor. I'm not for any of that. So that causes any harm to our residents or our children. So I would not be for that at all.
Councilmember Hertzberg.
Thank you. And I don't mean to sound targeting at all. That's why I preface my my comments with, I don't mean to target. But I wasn't on council at any time when many businesses were placed in locations that I personally have issue with now, but I am on council today. And so I'm just using my voice to speak on behalf of the safety of our children.
And there are times I don't always agree with some of these businesses coming in, but we have to follow the law. And we have to follow the law, and if they've zoned into an area where they're legal to go in and they have a law, then we would be sued as a city rightly if we started targeting a specific business. So some of those, I remember the first time I came home and my mom found out that I'd approved of liquor. She about, had a fit. She never drank and I don't drink, and that's our choice, right? But I had to follow the law because the law said they were zoned into the correct area. And they, let me tell you, Christy checks that stuff out really carefully. So, all right, I don't have any more. I really appreciate the robust discussion we've had on this tonight. I think we've heard from a lot of council members, and I do respect Councilmember Rick's thought of potentially bringing it back. What I find is that when we really dive into something like this and spend a lot of time in it, when we go to bring it back, there usually isn't a lot of interest in it because people have kind of done what they've done and they want to move on with it and on to the next issue that we're dealing with. So I would be open to seeing if we can expand that 1,000 feet, whether we do it tonight by a potential amendment, or whether we do it by, what I don't want to see is I don't want this to die, and then we can't do anything, because under our charter, we have to wait a certain amount of time to bring it back, and then our community would just be open, and now we're stuck. So, oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Applegate.
No,
I didn't see your.
I was going to say, when you're
Okay.
done, are you ready to move on a motion or no?
Okay, well, I was going to ask if there's any last comments.
Okay.
So I think, my personal interest would be potentially expanding it if we could, and then taking it back if we have to. That would be my personal preference, but we'll see what the rest of the council sees. So, okay, then, any further discussions or comments from anybody? We've worn Todd's back out. He's got to go take a walk, huh? Okay, all righty. Okay, Councilmember Applegate.
So, move to approve.
Hang on, let me find, okay.
Yes. Yeah, 1808, ordinance 1808, amended that the subject distance requirements go a minimum of 1,500 feet.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
And, excuse
Oh,
me,
I'm sorry.
we discovered one little spot that, since if we're going to make an amendment, then we'll go ahead and just ask for it to be added as well.
Okay.
It's in 17.16.060, natural medicine businesses, and that's on page 5 if you have your printed copy. Letter D, it says the distances, it talks about how they're computed, and we need to add residential dwelling as well as school or facility.
Okay, I'm going to read the sentence, and you tell me where you want the words
Okay.
put in. The distances referred to in this section shall be computed by direct measurement from the nearest property line of the land used for a school or facility to the nearest,
And then, sorry, school, facility, or residential dwelling.
okay, school, comma, facility, comma, or residential dwelling? Is that how you want it?
Yes.
Corey, you got that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I thought I had that because I said distance requirements, so for the vulnerable.
Right, but we have to add in the
Okay.
word, okay,
Okay,
okay. So we're going to do two
okay.
amendments.
So two
Thank you.
amendments, okay. Motion
That's okay, I'll help you out if you need it.
for ordinance 1808, yeah.
Right.
Subject to distance requirements amended to a minimum of 1,500 feet, and also it was,
And on section 17.16.60,
for 1716.
Item D.
10, uh-huh.
add in, change the sentence to read, school, facility, or residential dwelling.
So for item D, read the words school facility or residential dwelling. Correct?
Correct, sorry, we read this
You're
a
good.
million times, but apparently not enough.
Follow the lead on your attorney when in doubt.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we have a motion as amended. Councilmember Hersberg?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion with two amendments that I'm not going to repeat. I'm sure everybody's got them. Okay, all righty. Any further deliberation from council? Okay, seeing none, please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you, everybody, for a really, really good discussion on this. I really appreciate it. Grace, you're going to know more about mushrooms than you ever wanted to know in your life, huh? Yes.
She's going to be the regional expert.
There we go. All right, all right. We'll just say, go to Grace. All right. Okay, we are done with the regular agenda. That takes us to item 10, City Council agenda requests. Anybody? Okay, seeing none. And now to the audience, I'm going to go over this kind of quick because it's a little confusing. This is our annual confusing agenda. We are going to read into the record, because we have to do it in open section, that we are going to go into executive session. And then we're going to adjourn this meeting. However, then we're going to go directly into the item under the adjournment on your agenda where it says the 2 GID meetings. We'll go directly into GID meeting number 1, adjourn that, then go into GID meeting number 2, adjourn that, and then we will take a break for about 5 minutes, clear the room and reset everything, and then we will go into executive session. So if you really want to stay around for the excitement, after we read in the executive session, feel free to stay around a little bit longer. Okay. Go ahead.
In accordance with the city charter and the Colorado Open Meetings Act, the city council Open session is to determine whether it will hold a closed executive session. A closed executive session may be held upon an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the quorum present. If consent of the closed executive session is not given, the items may be discussed in open session or withdrawn from consideration. Purpose of tonight's executive sessions are pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-4024 for the purpose of review or approval amendments of executive session minutes. CRS Section 24-6-4024E for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and/or instructing negotiators on contractual performances of a city contractor. CRS Section 24-6-4024A to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of real personal or other property interests associated with Keaton Reservoir.
Okay, so that is the request from our city clerk. Councilmember Rick,
Move we go into executive session.
do I have a second? Councilmember Hertzberg?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
I'll be taking a verbal vote, please. Councilmember, Mayor Thompson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Hinton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Applegate, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Estes, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Herzberg, how do you vote?
Yes.
I have 6 yes, motion carried.
I am opening the regular city council meeting of the city council reconvening as the ex officio board of directors for the Fountain General Improvement District Number 1 and for action on the following items. I am opening a public hearing and resolution. I'm giving that a workout tonight, huh? 24-039 GID1, a resolution adopting a budget for Fountain General Improvement District Number 1 for fiscal year FY 2024, assessing a levy on taxable property and providing for certifying a levy to El Paso County. And who is, oh, there you go.
I'm just playing musical seats tonight.
Okay, well, I didn't have a name on the agenda, so, yeah.
I'd also like to point out on the agenda, there was a typo on there for both the GAD1 and the GAD2 where it says that we'll be reading in for the fiscal year 2024 budget. It should say 2025. The commentary and the ordinance should be correct. It's just the agenda.
Okay. All right, thank you for pointing that out. So when we make the motion, we need to make sure we do it for the right year. Okay. You have anything to say, ma'am?
Just that, of course, this is General Improvement District Number 1, which was established in 2007. This district is to provide capital assets necessary because of growth in areas that were annexed into the city. And these are for capital assets generally for fire and police stations and related capital equipment. For GID1, we have not spent anything out of, out of the fund balance in GID1, and currently there are no planned expenditures. This does have a mill levy of, I believe it's 12 mills for GID1 that would need to be approved. And on the screen, you'll see that we're estimated to bring in about $211,000 in revenue with no expenses, which would bring the ending fund balance at the end of 2025 up to about $1.6 million, which we have tentatively talked about using the majority of that down to start paying for Fire Station 4 over in Ventana. But at this time, there's no planned expenditures for 2025. So pending any questions?
Okay, you said Fire District Number 4 over by Ventana.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, okay, I
Aspen
just wanted
Ranch.
to correct.
My apologies. Fire Station 4 over by Aspen Ranch.
All right, been a long night?
It has. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. No, I just wanted to correct it for the record.
Thank you.
Okay, and the majority of the citizens are not in this GID, so they're not paying this extra mill levy, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all righty. Okay, all righty, any questions from council? Questions from anyone in the audience? Okay, what would council like to do with this? Thank you. I am closing the public hearing for GID number 1. Okay, Councilmember Rick.
Move to approve Resolution 24-039 GID1, a resolution adopting the budget for Fountain General Improvement District Number 1 for fiscal year 2025.
Thank you. Councilmember Henson.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'm going to assume no deliberation. Please vote. I know.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right. I am opening the public hearing, if I can turn the page, for adjourn the meeting. I adjourn the meeting for GID 1, because we only do this once a year, so, give me a little grace. Okay.
Take your time.
All righty. Opening the meeting for GID number 2, to reconvene as the ex officio Board of Directors for the General Improvement District number 2 for action on the following items. Public hearing and resolution number 24-040 GID2, a resolution adopting a budget for Fountain General Improvement District 2 for fiscal year 2025, assuming a levy on taxable property and providing for certifying a levy to the El Paso County.
Thank you. Yes. So this district, the General Improvement District Number 2, was created in 2012 to help transfer some of the costs of developing property to those properties that are in the district. Those were, the fees that were exempted from that were the city service expansion fee, 20% of the water tap fee, the plot plan review fee, and the residential construction evaluation study surcharge. This district has a mill levy of 10 mills, and up on the screen, you'll have the budget for 2022, 2023 actuals, 2024 current, and then the 2025 proposed budget. Currently, the only expenditures that we've had out of General Improvement District Number 2 has actually been the transfer out of these revenues to the water fund as part of the water stabilization fund that we have been talking about for the last year. And in 2023, we transferred $389,000, which is approximately 79% of the revenue that's brought into General Improvement District Number 2. And so the only expenditure that we have planned for 2025 is the $142,000, which would be going to the water fund, which is 79% of the property taxes that are estimated to be brought in. That takes the fund balance down to about $466,000 at the end of 2025. So with that, I'm open to any questions.
Okay, any questions from council? Okay, any questions from anyone in the audience? Okay, what would council like to do? Oh, wait, excuse me, I'm closing that public hearing. Okay, what would council like to do? Council member, I don't know who was first.
Estes.
Somebody make a motion, there's like 3 of you up here, so. Councilmember Applegate.
Move to approve resolution number 24-040 GID 2.
For 2025.
Yeah, 420.
I just want to make sure it's in there since it was in the.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All righty, Councilmember Rick.
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberation? Seeing none, please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
Okay, we are adjourned for the 3rd time tonight, and we're going to
Thank
take
you.
a short break at 7:46. Everybody be back at like 7:51 for the executive